Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Sorry.
Good evening. Welcome everybody to our regular meeting for the month of April already. Hard to believe. Year's going by very quickly. We always open our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we have Mr. Midway Middle. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Middle school. I selected a large group that are employees' kids because of the time that they spend up at the school just as much often as our employees. But I have Ronald, Derek, and Catherine De Leon, if y'all want to come on up here.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead and start? Ronald, go ahead.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. And Ronald is son of Davina Derrick, who is one of our counselors at Midway Middle School, and Catherine's the daughter of Stephanie De Leon, one of our English teachers at Midway Middle School. So thank y'all. Thank you very much.
Reg, we always have recognition, and we've got some outstanding recognition this evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Russick, members of the board. Welcome, everyone, to our April board meeting. Just at the conclusion, though, just as a reminder of our award recognitions tonight, we always do take a quick, short break. You're more than welcome to stay for our other agenda items, but we understand with busy schedules. Mr. Fisher was mentioning he had almost 20 students invited tonight, but then all of these extracurricular events fell also tonight, so we lost some of them to extracurricular. So I know you're busy, and so we certainly have an opportunity for if you need to leave. We appreciate that. So we do have many awards and recognitions, and we're going to start with Miss Allison Smith, who is our principal of Midway High School. So Miss Smith, if you'll come forward, I'll turn it over to you. And tonight we're assisted by Mrs. Pam Watts, one of our school board members.
Thank you, Dr. Kazanis. So I do have quite a few tonight, so y'all just bear with me. But I'm going to start with our Tractor Tech team. And earlier this month, we had 3 Midway High School students that competed in a 2-day state FFA tractor technician competition. They advanced to the finals and finished in 4th place out of hundreds of teams who initially began competing this year. Congratulations to, and I'm going to have them come up here to the front, Delaney Moskowitz, and then Haley Hardesty, Caleb Montgomery, and their coach, Mr. Sean Raycheck. So y'all come on up right over here. Congratulations. So come on up. Mr. Raycheck, you got to come on up. So a few more details on this. They are one of only 36 teams from across Texas to advance to the state tractor tech competition and one of only 10 teams to make it to the finals. In addition to their 4th place finish, they also won several $1,000s in tools and prizes for themselves and for their school. They had this huge picture of their haul. And advancing to the state level in any competition is an incredible honor, and these 3 students not only competed in the state competition, but earned a place among the top 4 teams in Texas. We're very proud of all their hard work, and it's many late hours, weekends, like into the wee morning hours of working on tractors. So congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Congratulations. And then next we're going to introduce our Midway students that did the chef competition. And so Midway High School student chef team of Peyton Bottoms, Charlie Codd, and Ethan Oderman, who named their team the Soccer Moms, earned 2nd place in the state Lone Star Chef competition with a dish they created called Savory Waffle Nachos. Those were out in the foyer just a few moments ago. After winning the district competition, Midway's student chef team moved on to compete alongside 12 other winning teams from across Texas in the Lone Star Chef competition at Minute Maid Park in Houston. The theme for the 2022 competition was the Breakfast of Champions, and the team's Savory Waffle Nachos dish earned them a score of 95 out of 100, simply 2 points away from the 1st place dish. Congratulations to this outstanding team and their coach, Miss Annette DeFries. We're going to have her come up as well, and along with our Aramark leadership team for showcasing the amazing talent of students in our culinary department at Midway. And our Aramark guys contributes a huge part to this, along with Ms. DeFries. A lot of time, a lot of effort, and making the competition happen at Midway High School is a big show. So very cool. Congratulations. Yay. Next, we have the Midway High School debate team with the members of Colin Jones and Neon Zung, and I think they're both here. Competed in the 6A UIL cross-examination debate 6A state competition in Austin in March and finished as octa finalists. They advanced through 4 preliminary rounds of competition, beginning with 48 student teams, to earn a spot in the octafinals alongside 15 other remaining teams. Advancing to this round of competition is an incredible accomplishment and ranks them among the top 16 teams in the state. Congratulations to these students and to their achievement as Octa finalists and to their coach, Miss Susan Jones. And we're going to have her come on up here for a picture too. Congratulations. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears here as well. So good job. And I promise this will be my last couple here. So each year, the National Center for Women and Information Technology, known as NCWIT, recognizes students for their accomplishments and goals in computing and technology. This year, 8 Midway High School students are being honored as recipients of the 2022 Award for Aspirations in Computing. Congratulations to Affiliate Honorable Mention Award winners, and that's Louisa Hauser and Hannah Lee. So if they'll go ahead and come on up. I'm not sure they're here. Okay. And then we have Affiliate Rising Star winners, Esther Kim and Priya West. And if y'all will go ahead and come on up. And then next, the National Certificate of Distinction recipients are Kirsten Benson, Julia Moore, Caitlin Gaines, and Lillian Goodman. And each of these students is being recognized for their academic excellence, leadership, computing-related achievements, and interest and future goals in computing and technology. These students are also led by a multi-talented Miss Susan Jones. So we're going to have her come back up. And over 3,500 applications were submitted this year from around the globe. So this group of Midway students truly stood out from the crowd. Congratulations.
Congratulations, students. All right, so I have one more special award before we get to our foundation awards tonight. But the Midway has an Extra Mile Awards presented to individuals who go above and beyond our school community. Today, Midway is proud to honor a high school student, and that is Aaliyah DeBera, who is the first ever student recipient of this award. Please come forward. And Aaliyah is receiving this award on a very serious topic because she was instrumental in saving one of our teachers' lives. And so let me explain. During lunch on Friday, April the 8th, a teacher, Miss Nicole Miles, was walking through our high school library and eating a snack. And unfortunately, the snack, I believe it was chips, got stuck in her throat. She coughed to clear her airway, but she had trouble breathing and started gasping for air. So as soon as Aaliyah noticed the teacher in distress, she began performing the Heimlich maneuver and also while calling out for help. Thanks to Aaliyah's swift actions, Ms. Miles was able to clear her throat and finally take a full breath. Aaliyah is enrolled in health science classes through Midway ISD, through Midway High School, and is a student at the Greater Waco Healthcare Academy. The medical training she received through Midway and the Healthcare Academy has given her the tools to be prepared for emergency situations like this. She knew exactly what to do. She acted quickly. She remained calm and collected throughout it all. Ms. Miles said, "There's no doubt in my mind that Aaliyah saved my life, and no coincidence that she was in the library at the exact time. I'm beyond grateful for Aaliyah and can't wait to see all the amazing things she will continue to do in the medical field." So, Ms. Miles, you're here tonight, I believe, right? Where is she? Oh, Ms. Miles is here tonight to support our hero. Ms. Miles, would you come forward as well and join her? But I have a little bit more to say, though. You're great, though. Also part of our special surprise tonight, though. We have Nathalie Cooper and Nancy Mullman from the First National Bank of Central Texas. They're here with a gift of support for your efforts. Let me read this from the First National Bank of Central Texas. What a great story. Aaliyah demonstrated such poised and professional reaction to the situation. Thank you for allowing the First National Bank of Central Texas to attend. Just a little background why we've been asked to be included. One of our missions at our bank is to recognize moments and create moments. We do this for our customers, employees, and our communities. We realize the power of moments can have extraordinary impacts, both small and large. Aaliyah is an example of this. Learning a little bit about her, she is a remarkable young lady. Moments she has experienced in her life from friends, parents, role models, and educators helped her become who she is. The First National Bank of Central Texas would like to present Aaliyah with a bag of goodies. This includes Starbucks gift cards, a Chick-fil-A card. Everyone can use these, of course, and friends and family. Also included is a gift card to purchase scrubs or necessities needed for someone planning to study in the medical field. And also notebook and other First National Bank Central Texas swag. And so please, again, flowers too. Let's all get in a group photo, please, there. All right. All right. So again, Aaliyah, real quick, thank you for your efforts. You are so appreciated. If you haven't seen it, it has been on KWTX, and you can see they actually have the video posted from our camera footage of the event, and everything we said is true. And this being able to stay so calm and collected and to save the life is truly inspirational. So thank you so much for being here. All right, and we have just a little bit more, and so I'm happy to introduce to you Ms. Susie Pagel, who is our Executive Director of our Midway Education Foundation and has some grant presentations. Yeah. Susie, turn it over to you.
I have a very special grant award to make tonight. President Christy Miller from the foundation is assisting me, also board members Jonathan Green, founding board member Glenda Strum, and new board member Jordan Berry, Staff Representative Ashley Knutson, Board Representative Brad Alford, and Superintendent Representative George Kazanis. Did I leave anybody out of the crowd? Okay. We are here with a very special announcement. As you know, the sixth graders will be moving up to the middle schools at River Valley and Midway Middle next year. And in support of that, the Education Foundation is awarding its largest grant to date for $112,000 to the middle school campuses. So I'm going to ask Mr. Fisher and Mr. Offal to come up, please, to accept this big check. And I'm going to let Ashley Knutson tell a little bit about the program that we'll be funding.
This is such an exciting program that we're going to be able to offer to our 6th and 7th grade students through an elective class called Career Connections. It is going to be a hands-on lab that allows the students to work in partners throughout the school year and work through hands-on exploration of 14 different career paths, and all of the career paths and the experiences that they'll have in the class align to the courses that we offer through our elective course offerings at both middle school campuses and at our high school. So students will begin to explore interests and possible career pathways that they can think about as they progress through our middle school experiences and our high school campus, so that they can learn early on that they want to be in the medical field like Aaliyah, and they can start learning those hands-on skills early on. And it would not have been possible to make this happen for both of our campuses without the support of the Ed Foundation, and we are so appreciative and very excited for all of the students that have already signed up for the class for next year.
Big money.
So on that note, Mr. Russick and members of the board, we conclude recognitions. We are finished.
So, as he said, once we get done with recognition, you're all welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting.
Oh, wait, one more.
I was wondering what you were
I
doing,
got
but
too
I thought
excited
maybe you
about
knew
the
something
check.
I didn't know.
I got too excited about the check. My apologies. I know. The students, the children. So excited for the foundation and for our career connections. It really is exciting because they're starting this in 6th grade with the electives. I can't tell you how thrilled and happy we are for the support. And as we open schools and campuses in the 2 middle schools, this is going to fit in perfectly. But I had one more recognition, and I do apologize. Thank you for correcting me. But we do have this is the last official meeting with one of our school board members tonight, so we would love to recognize and honor Dr. Andy Popejoy. Dr. Popejoy, if you'll please come forward here. Dr. Popejoy is a Midway High School alum. He graduated in 1994. He joined the board in 2019. He is an emergency medicine physician at Premier ER, and he is married to a pediatrician, Dr. Vicki Popejoy. They have 4 children that span the grades from elementary school to high school now, and they are actively involved at First Woodway Baptist Church. He serves on numerous boards, including the In Commons Bank Board of Directors and the Cameron Park Zoological, I should say, and Botanical Society Board of Directors. That's a mouthful. But Dr. Popejoy has been a joy to work with on a personal note, and I know he was a wonderful addition to the school board. He has been very helpful, and I know with Dr. Johnson and her leadership on our SHAC committee, which is the Student Health Advisory Committee, he's been a great expertise for that, as well as you all know, through all of COVID too, and having his support and help, and just a person to bounce ideas off throughout those last very difficult couple of years. But he is, again, very admirable and certainly a fine role model for all of our Midway students to serve at some point in their lives, again, giving back to the communities, if it's back here at home in Midway or wherever they land in their lives. And so we can't thank you enough, Dr. Popejoy, for your service. Again, a very, very small token of our appreciation is the clock to commemorate your years with us. So congratulations. Please join me in congratulations. Now I'm finished.
And let me just say this, from my perspective as a board member, how much I appreciate all of our recognition tonight, and especially I want to thank Andy for his service as a board member. If you've never run a contested election, think about what that's like to put yourself out there. I commend anybody that's willing to do that. He was, and he won, and then, as George said, has served admirably. The learning curve when you become a new board member is incredibly steep, and he's handled it as well as anybody I've ever seen, and we were lucky to have him for the time we had him. Thank you, Andy.
Good speech makers, I'm not. Those are very nice words, and I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed my time. I wish I could make some great speech, but I'll just say it short that I've enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed meeting everybody, and it's been a good experience, and I'm sad to leave.
You'll be much missed.
Oh, thank you.
We will. Now, the rest of the meeting is open to the public, and you're more than welcome to stay, but if you've got things to do on this gorgeous Tuesday evening, we understand that also. Information items, we've got our quarterly investment report, and unless a board member has a question on that as an information item, we're going to move on to our presentation discussion items, the first of which is the monthly finance report. Wesley, you're up.
Good evening. On page 13 of our financial report, we'll kind of expound a little bit on what we spoke about in the special meeting. You can see our projected general fund revenue and expenditures for the current year, fiscal 2022, projecting a $3.3 million deficit. That does include the hold harmless for the first 4-6 weeks. So the way that worked is they apply the greater attendance percentage of the current year's first 4-6 weeks or the first 4-6 weeks of the 2020 school year. This year, our attendance percentage was 94%, 94.5%, and in 2020 it was 96.5%. So we applied the 2020 percentage, and that increased our revenue by about $800,000 for the current year.
Wesley, do you think they'll do that again for some of the later 6-week session, groupings for the year?
I don't know. We don't have that data yet. I would be surprised if they did, since things seem to be somewhat kind of back to normal. And the last page of the report, page 14, you may need to kind of zoom in on it if you can. It's kind of small print, but this is a list of our summer projects. So every spring, the campuses and departments submit requests for summer projects to take care of the things that can't really be done during the school year. Our maintenance department, as well as myself and Dr. Kazanis, look over those and approve what we can. And so for this summer, we're proposing summer projects in the amount of $89,000. Yes, $89,500. That'll come from our committed fund balance for maintenance and construction. There's a budget amendment in the consent agenda to approve that amount. There's also 2 other budget amendments, one for the scoreboard replacement, Mr. Shelton will be discussing later, and the other amendment is to cover the increased cost of fuel for the year. I believe it's $125,000 more. As you know, the fuel prices really soared during the year, and so we're having to increase our budget to accommodate that.
You think that'll cover us for the rest of the school year for the gas money?
Yes, it should.
I wasn't sure if it was kind of just refill the coffers for what's the extra money.
So any questions?
Were any of these items come as a surprise? I would imagine with the HVAC at Woodway, that was something we had anticipated for a while and just are going to do it in the summertime. HVAC units at Woodway Gym.
Let's see.
That seems to be the biggest ticket thing.
They're not that old.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of caused us a surprise.
Okay.
We replaced all the heat pumps,
Right.
not the geothermal
Yeah.
last summer, but those are rooftop. So
And I should have added 2. So they were under the funding source. There's 2 columns, one for general fund and one for bond funds. And so the budget amendment is and for the $89,000 is to cover those items coming out of the general fund.
Gotcha.
But some of those others that, for instance, at Woodway, we already had bond funds budgeted for HVAC, so we're going to utilize the bond funds for that project.
Good.
Okay.
Wes, I did a question back on a quarterly report about the CD rates that you renewed. I know they're terrible everywhere. How often do y'all shop those annually, or how do you determine what
We
to get?
do, and so we're really down to 1 CD now, because the CD we had with Independent Financial, when it was up for renewal last fall, we were getting more just our regular kind of money market account, and the Central National Bank, which is the one I believe you're looking at. We renewed. It's an annual basis. We've had it for a very long time, and that was kind of bad timing on our part, because we renewed it right after that, the rates jumped up. So if we'd renewed it now, then yeah, we probably could have gotten a lot better rate. But but yeah, you're right. Every year we look at it. So.
Other questions on the finance report? All right, very good. Thank you, Wesley. Bond construction update, Buddy.
board members and Dr. Kazanis, thank you all for what you do. and thank you for letting me be a part of this team. CTE edition, everything's looking great. Most of the painting's done, some of the floors, a lot of the floors are done, ceilings are done. We've even designated 5 or 6 rooms that we're going to do a punch list item on very soon, so that sometime during May we can go ahead and move some of the stuff in there from the high school, so that we can get those areas that we're going to attack this summer in the current high school, we'll get those cleaned out. So we need a place to put all that. So that project, everything's on schedule. River Valley, everything's on schedule. They did the last concrete pour last week, so we shouldn't have any more complaints from the neighbors, because when they did those concrete pours, they had to have lights because they started at like 3 in the morning, and concrete trucks make a little noise. But so we're finished with that. Terrazzo, they're finishing up on the terrazzo. That looks good. The gym floors are in. The grass is about ready to go in on the football field. Everything's looking good. So we're on schedule there.
I saw the goalpost up.
Are the goalposts up?
Yeah, and the soccer goals were out.
Okay. Remind me again, we put in place wiring for lights on the field, but not budgeted for the actual lights, is that right?
Correct. We put conduit.
Conduit, okay.
And we ran electrical across the parking lot. So the electrical is not ran all the way to the lights, but.
So waiting to see kind of where things land before we make a decision, or is it I don't know.
Be honest, highest priority.
Well, clearly.
Yeah.
Got to get school started and have them their practice field. We still have Rice Field and things like that for games, but it certainly was done with the anticipation that we could do that. We really, once we get the second phase bid of the middle school, with the guaranteed maximum price, then we'll have a better idea where we stand with any other additional projects.
But we did do some things so we wouldn't have to tear stuff up if we decide to add them later. So, ITC, it's pretty much finished. We're still waiting on the air conditioning units for the server room, but we have a temporary certificate of occupancy. So the furniture's supposed to be here like April the 25th or 26th, and at the end of that week, Jesse's department is thinking they're probably going to move in. So get to occupy the technology side of it. He even has internet already working over there. So they're excited about that, and we're excited. If you hadn't been in there to see it, you need to come by and look at it. It's turned out to be a beautiful building. Park Hill Elementary, if you've been by there today, you notice that they did finish the brick. They're working on the concrete outside. They've started painting. A lot of the inside is painted. Ceiling grids are going up in the restrooms. The resinous floors are down. The wall tile is going up. It's in sections 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think. And it's looking really good. It looks sharp. And when you drive by that, the brick really pops with the 2 different colors. I asked Kevin today, are we getting back towards our schedule that we originally had? And he wouldn't commit to that, but we have made enough progress, at least with the drywall crew, that this may be the last Saturday they have to work, this coming Saturday. Phase 2 at Chapel Park, everything continues on schedule. They're inside. You know, we moved into the administrative area at spring break, or right after spring break. That's working out great. It's a wonderful decision that you made to move the administration to the front of that building. It makes it so much more functional as a school. Middle school, as Dr. K referenced, we're planning on having you a guaranteed maximum price at the May board meeting for phase 2. We had a pre-bid meeting yesterday. It looks like we're going to get good coverage on that, so we hope that comes in under budget. Barnett Construction has started on the driveway project at Spring Valley. That's looking good, and it's going to make that so much more functional. And they're about to start on the construction on Spring Valley Road, that Farm to Market Road. That construction is supposed to start this month or next month.
How long do you think that will take? I don't recall. First, the road.
That Spring Valley project, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be over a year.
They're just getting back to that, right? The work that they had done before COVID. And then they
Yes, yes. The funding got moved over to the mall-to-mall project, and now the funding has become available again. So yeah, they had started on doing some driveway work and things like moving utilities, and so now there's gonna be sidewalks on both sides of the road, couple blocks past the school down to the creek, and then it'll be widened. I think the turn lane maybe goes all the way through. So it'll be nice when all of that's done. Any other questions? Dr. Popejoy told me to keep it short and sweet. Since this is his last meeting, I need to honor that. Thank you.
Gifted and Talented Program Annual Update.
All right. Hello, members of the board. Dr. Kazanis. I'd like to introduce you to Ashley Duncan. She is our coordinator for state and federal programs and also oversees the Gifted and Talented program. So we're going to tag team this presentation, if that's okay. So we'll get started with our program update, and we want to go over the big rocks first. Several things to highlight, and that first one there is a big one. We tested over 500 students for the Gifted and Talented program this year. That's different from other years, and we'll explain that in a few slides from now. But we're really proud that we have 38% of those 500 students who were identified as gifted and talented. A lot of these kids have been students who have been missed prior to this year, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Also, we're hovering around 10.6% of our overall population who are identified as gifted and talented students. We're above the state average. That is right now at 8.3. And then we also revised our GT identification matrix that had not been looked at for about a decade, I think over a decade. So it was time to take a look at that and bring us more in line with current research on gifted and talented identification processes. And then a couple of other things that we had going on is the obvious one is we currently bring our students to the intermediate school. And we've done this for many years, and it has been a success for us over the years. However, we are no longer going to have intermediate school, so that obviously was an issue for us. We don't want to take 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds over to a middle school on a weekly basis, so we needed to come up with a different plan. So we formed a Midway GT Advisory Council to evaluate and propose something else that we could do that wouldn't take away from all the benefits that we've been giving our students over the years. We also are fortunate enough to be doing some groundbreaking work, I believe, at the middle school level. We're adding a GT elective course. We're calling it Gifted and Talented Education, or GATE. We probably could have come up with a better name, but that's what we're calling it right now. But it's going to really enhance the experience at the middle level. We still have our humanities course, but there are a few things that we're doing there as well. We're expanding our honors offerings. We're going to have honors classes in science, 7th and 8th grade, ELAR and social studies, again, the humanities, and then also pre-algebra and algebra 1. We're also opening up those honors courses to high achieving students, students who can test into those courses as well. So we're proud, we're expanding things, and we still have work to do. We also hired 2 additional GT specialists for next year, one at the elementary level and one at the secondary level in middle school. Real quick, these are our numbers, what they're shaping up at the elementary level for next year. Nothing too fancy here to talk about. You can see that they tend to grow as we go up towards 5th grade because it would give kids more opportunities to test and be potentially identified as gifted and talented. Moving on to our middle school numbers. That's what they're looking like for next year as well. I will point out that 88 there at the River Valley Middle School 6th grade looks kind of high, but again, we have a new screen, a new safety net, I would say, at the 5th grade level that we have started. We've never done this before, but again, we're really trying to find students who have slipped through the cracks before. And so what we're doing now is we have a screener for 2nd graders. It's always been done here at Midway, but now we've put one in place at the 5th grade level. And so we have identified 5th graders starting with that screener who have, for some reason or another, have just been missed and not identified prior to that. So we're really proud. That's why those numbers at that in that box look a little bit higher, but that is a good thing because these students were gifted and talented all along. It's our job to make sure they're identified. All right, real quick, demographics. We have some work to do in this area. We've been talking about this for years. We would love for our GT program demographics to match and look very closely to our overall district demographics. And obviously we are not quite there, but we are putting some things in place like the 5th grade screener that I mentioned that's going to help us in that area. We really want to look at our Hispanic, that 13% difference there. We want to bring that number down, that percentage, the difference. Also with our Black population, that 10% there, we want to bring that down. If we look at our newly identified kiddos this year according to the different sub-pops, we are making some headway. We added 27 Hispanic students to those GT numbers. Again, I like to think about it in these terms. They've always been gifted. We just have not identified them, and we're putting things in place to do a better job with that. Also, 10 Black students, bringing those percentages, the difference, a little bit lower than what it's been in the past. We're not through. We have more work to do, but we're starting to take those baby steps in the right direction. So we're proud of that as well. We've had several GT models over the years. Primarily, it's been a pull-out model plus clustering kids into one class with a GT certified teacher. Those are fabulous things. Ms. Duncan is going to go over those in a few minutes as well. But one of the things I wanted to point out is that we've had the experience of going through COVID and trying some different things. And fortunately, that has helped us in determining kind of how to move forward with what's going to make the most sense for the district. So I'll let Ashley now go and be the driver.
Thank you. Good evening. So looking at the data, we built a GT advisory committee that had representation from all 8 elementary campuses. We had a mix of principals and parents, 2 GT specialists, and one of the parents was a teacher as well, so she brought a special perspective. We looked at the 5 models that we've used over the past 5 years. One thing that I keep hearing is that we need sustainability, we need consistency. Our students have had something different every year, and that's what we're trying to put into place here. So we evaluated the current model. As Dr. Pena said, we can't take 7-year-olds to a middle school anymore. So we needed to look at what other options we have. And then we proposed a service model for the 2022-2023 school year. We looked at comparative districts of our same demographic or similar size. And what we found is no 2 districts do it alike. Almost all of the districts did have some sort of pull-out program that was housed on their campus, but they were all different based off of their staffing and their student population and their campus needs. So based off of our experience over the last 5 years and those comparative districts, we came up with 5 options that the advisory committee voted on. Option 1 was our current model, and we did have 3 votes for that one, but the committee came down to option 2 and option 3. Option 2 is a half day for primary, so 3rd through 5th grade students would still receive their 5 hours that they're receiving right now, and 1st and 2nd grade would receive half day services. And the reason for that was 5 hours is a long time for a 7-year-old, and they kind of tank after lunch. Option 3 was clustering first grade students and providing the 5 hours of services for second through fifth grade. The committee voted, and we came up with service option number 2. So all students will be served on their home campuses. The primary students will be served 1/2 day a week, first grade in the morning, second grade in the afternoon, or vice versa. Third grade students will receive 1 full day of services. And something that's really great about this is they're still receiving the same amount, same time, but now they're able to have lunch with their peers, and they're able to enjoy going to art, music, PE, computers, and so forth. Right now, when they're pulled out, if they're pulled out on an art day, that's the only day they have art that week. They just don't get to go to art. And so that's very challenging for our kiddos because a lot of our GT kids are gifted in art. Services will include social emotional learning, critical and creative thinking, GT research, and we received an award, my mind just went blank. Grant, there we go. I'm sorry. We received a grant to start STREAM, which is like STEM and STEAM, but we have added the reading portion to it. So a lot of our GT students are those advanced readers, and so we want to make sure that we incorporate all of those things into our GT services.
And I would just point out that we do recognize that the current model has some advantages of students getting the experience of leaving their campus, going to another campus, being partnered with another elementary school. So for example, a student on South Bosque's day, those students would go to River Valley and they would get to have an experience with some Spiegelville students because those two campuses had been partnered. So there is that we are going to miss with this new proposed plan, but there are so many benefits that we'll be gaining. One of them is we have spent with students and teachers on a bus traveling over the years almost 60 hours when you kind of tabulate the entire year of just travel time. So we're gaining that time back. Kids can have more instructional time, teachers can have more planning time. So they're with any time you're making a decision, there are going to be some pros and some cons. You lose some and you gain some. And then another thing that we really didn't specify is fifth grade is now going to increase the time that they have being served in this program. They currently are being served once a month. Now they're going to have their GT pull-out day every single week.
Thank you. As Dr. Pena said, we're increasing the services for our fifth grade students, which is something that our students have asked for. So we want to make sure that we honor that and we continue providing them the GT enrichment that they have received through elementary school. So some big differences, or the main differences, is they will no longer travel to River Valley for services. When I looked at how much time was spent on a bus, one campus, for instance, since February, those students have spent over 5 hours on a bus transporting back and forth. So they will get back those 5 hours of instruction. Students will be served on their home campus, and first and second grade students will move from a full day of GT services to a half day of GT services. Just lost my thought, I apologize. All right.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ashley. And then also fifth graders are going to gain some time. So I wanted to then just kind of bring it home by talking about a real live human being. We talk about, well, decisions and pros and cons. We've looked at numbers, but I wanted to put a face to these numbers. So real quick, most of our GT students fall within the advanced or superior range. And then we have a few also who are in the gifted to highly gifted. And then every now and then we come across students who are exceptionally gifted. Their intelligence is just in that range or possibly even profoundly gifted. Now, sometimes we may miss a student. Our system is not perfect. We're always trying to find ways to make it better. But when that happens, it may be a student in, gifted, advanced, maybe high average. We should never miss a student repeatedly over and over again who is in the exceptionally gifted or profoundly gifted range. I want to introduce you to Emily. Emily should have been identified as a kindergartner or a first grader, but she wasn't. Our system somehow missed her repeatedly. I asked Emily because she was identified this year as a fifth grader, so she will then enter the gifted and talented program moving into middle school for the first time. But I asked her, Emily, I'm sorry, you should have been gifted long ago. You've been gifted. We just missed it. Yeah, how have you felt about that? And she said, well, actually, Dr. Pena, the worst part was, you know, with the other kids when they would leave to their other schools, some of them would make fun of us, the kids who didn't get to go, and they'd say, well, we're smarter than you. So that's not going to happen anymore. And I said, well, what did you do when you found out? And she said, when we got the letter, my mom and my dad opened it up with me, and we just started jumping up and down. We're not a perfect system. We're going to make mistakes. But one of the things that I hope is that we will not have future Emilys. So we want to make sure that we are putting our systems in place that are going to make sure that kids like Emily and others are found and put in the program and given the services that they need. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes, sir.
Because we've got two folks that have signed up to speak to this item, and I want to give them the opportunity to do that. Lisa Cisneros. Where's Lisa? Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
Come on up.
Okay. Thank you all. My name is Lisa Cisneros. I am the mother of a first grade student at Spiegelville Elementary. I was informed today that the GT Pullout program would be moving to home campus only next year. As a parent, I wish I had had an informed decision about this. My first concern as a parent is that we were not asked to provide our input. Was there a selected parent advisory committee, which I just learned had only 3 parents on it, one of which was a teacher, as I heard. Did the GT specialists have an input, or were they told that it was a decision made by the district? And then who was it who made that decision and why? The decision affects students from all elementary campuses. I would like to be informed of who made the decision and what the analysis was to draw conclusions that switching to home campus GT services was a better option. I hope that this decision for our students' education was not just made solely on the concerns of busing and the price of fuel, as I have been told. My next concern is that first and second grade will be receiving half-day services rather than a full day as they are now. Why? What components of the day will be removed to fit this half-day format? What was the reasoning behind the shortening of the day? What steps are being taken to ensure that all gen ed teachers are qualified to differentiate lessons with depth and complexity that are needed for our GT learners to experience? Thirdly, being that my daughter is one of the only 2 kids in her first grade class and that qualified for GT services, it is just her and one other student. Allowing for a larger group of students from different campuses to work together provides them with more challenges, conversations, and support and understanding for students who may experience similar successes and struggles in their gen ed classroom. Lastly, the students have experienced in-depth lessons and activities this school year, which span many weeks. How will these be conducted next year? Will GT funding be provided to have all the materials on each campus? Will there be a room dedicated to GT services on a campus where these experiences can be left without being moved? If it is in a public place, how will it be planned to ensure that these long-term projects go unharmed? These are just a few questions and concerns I place before you to discuss and analyze before making this important decision. I can be behind these changes, but I feel that the quick rush to change is not best for our students. GT services are legally required based on the Texas state plan. We would never change student services in special education without conducting an ARD and meeting to make sure that they are meeting the needs of the kiddos the best way they can. Why does the district feel it is best to change a program that has been working well for the last 12 years without getting input from students and parents who are involved? Please consider postponing changing the GT services from home campus only until the following school year and allow a year to collect data from all parents, students, and see the benefits and struggles of those with the current program. Please carefully weigh that information before rushing to change what a highly successful program is we have. I would be more than willing to head up the Parent Advisory Committee. Thank y'all for your time.
And then we have another person, Jenny Kriegel. Jenny?
Quite as organized as she is. Today's been busy, and I just found out about this as well, that it was going on tonight. I'm Jenny Kriegel, and just like background, I have 2 kids at Midway Elementary. They're both in the Gifted and Talented program. My daughter's in 1st grade. My son's in 4th grade. He was identified in 1st grade. For 2nd grade, that is the COVID year. Just for background, my daughter was identified last year, so she has been in GT all this year. So just like y'all have touched on everything, and so just the fact that it's been something different every year for 5 years. And I would say that if you were to ask my 10-year-old son, which time have you enjoyed the most, hands down, he would say going to River Valley, his 2nd grade year, where they got to go with he went with Colin's daughter from Castleman Creek. And so they were able to see each other, interact, able to interact with those other schools, be with all of the GT kids, since they're not in the same homeroom class, at least at Midway, they're not all together. So that is his favorite experience. He would tell you that. Even this year, when they've moved back to River Valley, it's still been some different components. As a first-time parent, I mean, it's been different every year, so I don't know what normal is in comparison. But my daughter would also tell you, she just told me today, tomorrow's GT day. She's so excited. She gets to go work on her habitat project that they're working on. She's looking forward to working on that. So this is definitely a program that these kids look forward to. Just like the lady who just spoke, she's 1st grader, so she's going to be in 2nd grade. And so I was just really disappointed when I found out that the proposal, I guess it is cutting out her time. Currently, she's been going all day, all year. I haven't heard of a single problem with that. These kids go to school all day, every day. So I don't know why it's too much time. I don't understand that kind of logic. I also don't know why currently, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware, 1st and 2nd grade are together. So why can't they be together next year? Why are we doing 1st grade and then 2nd grade? If it's like a space issue, I don't really know all the details. I thought you guys might talk more details because I'm not 100% aware of everything. But sorry, I'm not collected. I just didn't know why it had to be 3 hours or 2.5 and 2.5. Why it couldn't just be like they are right now, where they go all day. 1st grade and 2nd grade are together. My daughter loves that. I know other children love that interaction with those other 2nd graders. Right now, there's only 3 1st graders at Midway Elementary, 2 girls and 1 boy. That 1 boy loves being able to hang out with those 2nd grade boys and have that interaction. When in the fall, it was just the 3 of them. And being able to interact with, I don't know if there's 10, 15, I don't know how many there are, to be honest, in that room, it just provides so many more different experiences than they would when it's just this small little subset of kids that you see all the time. So I would definitely advocate, first of all, for 1st and 2nd grade to be together. Well, first of all, 2nd grade to have all day, because that's my kid. And that's what, right now, I'm speaking about my kid. But then ultimately, my niece is coming up. Her mom wasn't able to come tonight on the short notice, but she is coming up. She's going to be a 1st grader, and so they would love to be together and interact and do that program together. I know that's a unique situation. So I just kind of asked for, like she was kind of saying, more time maybe. I don't really know if we need to rush to make a decision right now, if there is another board meeting or discussions this summer. Not really sure on that. But then ultimately also with the busing, I don't know if we could maybe move the program. I understand that Spring Valley's way out here and River Valley's way out here, but now we have this awesome Chapel Park Elementary, kind of more centrally located. That's new and awesome and has all these awesome spaces. Could we possibly relocate the program there, or split 1st and 2nd grade go there? I know Midway's going to have a whole bunch of empty classrooms because of the shuffle around, or at least I think they are. So could some of the kids go there? I feel like maybe we could have more input or more time, a thought exchange, that y'all love the thought exchanges. But anyways, that's just kind of my thoughts tonight. Sorry they're a little rambling, but yeah, thanks.
Let me just make sure that everybody does understand, this is a presentation item. This is not an action item for the board tonight, or as I would understand it, it wasn't anything that the board was being asked to approve or act on in the future. So just want to make sure folks understand that. Now, if board members have questions from the administration, those folks are available and ready to answer questions.
Yes, sure, I had a couple of questions. So we hired another GT specialist. So does that give us enough specialists? So there's, I mean, how's their schedule going to work? One specialist goes to each campus and would see all the age groups that way, or two would go to one campus and how?
We'll now have 5 full-time specialists. Right now we have 3.5. So we actually moved one of our half-time specialists to a full-time position. 2 of the campuses have really large numbers, and so those grade levels are first grade gets served, second grade gets served, and so one teacher is at that campus all week long. The other 6 campuses are not as large, and so one teacher serves 2 campuses. So they may be at Castleman in the morning and serve first and second grade on Monday, and then they go to their second campus to serve first and second grade on that campus in the afternoon. So many of our campuses, first and second grade still is combined, they're not separated. And then, so they'll serve that campus in 2.5 days and serve their second campus in 2.5 days.
Is that one of the ideas of why you're cutting the first and second graders from a full day of GT to half a day because of more of a staffing issue, the way it's set up, if we do it on campus?
I mean, that's something that was discussed, that we only have 5, and so we have to make it work with 5, but that wasn't a decision, that wasn't part of the actual decision-making part.
And then with their on-campus pull-out, will there be a designated area like that mother asked where they can keep everything, it's locked, it's their space?
Yes, each GT specialist will have their space on the campus where they can keep their materials and supplies and not have to transfer it from campus to campus.
Do we have any thoughts about Speakleville because it's so small? And maybe sending those kids to another, just those, if we were to go with this plan, but how can we maybe do something like that if there's a campus that has very few, that they don't have to just be by themselves?
We actually talked about that in the original plan for this model. It was busing Speakleville. But that would be busing 3 or 4 kids, and the committee just decided that that was not the best situation for the students.
Thanks very much. And I will say for the benefit of everyone here that we had a conversation this morning, and I appreciate your taking the time to answer some questions and sort of talk through the process. I have several questions and a few things that I wanted to say as well. The first thing I wanted to say is I realize it's not an agenda item for us. There's nothing for us to approve necessarily, but I do feel pretty strongly that Dr. Perry and Dr. Kazana should reconsider this decision in light of not just the comments we've heard from parents here today, comments that I've heard from parents today who literally have less than 24 hours notice about this, and the ones that have emailed us as well. So my comments are not directed towards board action, they're directed towards perhaps our administration could respond to parent input and pause, at least for a month, to evaluate this further. So everything I say is sort of in that vein, if that makes sense. And I would hope that if we get a considerable member of the board that sort of agrees with that informally, that's something that you guys would take to heart for us. And for the parents of the 280 kids who are 1st through 5th grade GT identified for next year, according to your chart. Can't take 7-year-olds to a middle school. Tell me, where's that written?
It's not.
Okay, so we've decided, someone decided somewhere that we can't take 7-year-olds who are in their 5 classrooms, completely isolated, that have their own lunch, that have their own recess time, to a campus where there's kids that are a year or 2 older than they were last year.
We have students already that are very anxious about going to River Valley because River Valley has big kids. So that's already something we experience. For instance, I had one student this year that was furloughed because he could not get on the bus and go to River Valley because it was too much for him.
Okay.
So it may not, be every student has a problem with that, but when we can't serve a student because of the environment in which we're serving them, then we need to look at the environment.
Yeah, and that sort of brings us to the second point, which is the environment in which we're serving them, which is that the program we have now that's been here since 2010 does let our kids, in the ideal design, work with kids from other campuses, get to know them from across the district. And I don't know, my kids, my older two kids that are college and high school age now, made lifelong friends in second and third grade from kids that were at Woodway or South Bosque or Spiegelville, other places, because they interacted with them in this environment. The kinds of challenges that these kids face, the social emotional things that these kids face are special, right, for these GT kids. And the more of them that you can bring together from other places, the more they see that, hey, there's other people like me, and there's other people who are challenging me as much as, you know, my teachers are challenging me. So there's a really good example of where changing the environment has a severe adverse consequence on the program.
Well, I know field trips are not the end-all be-all, and it's, you know, a couple times during a semester or during a year, but that is something the committee talked about, was ways that we could get the students together, whether it be a field trip or we visit another campus. There's lots of options that we can work into what we're doing through the themes that we're working through. So getting students together, that's still something we want to do. It just won't be a weekly thing, but they'll have those opportunities to work with other students.
Okay. I want to show you guys something. And I don't want to spoil this for Jenny and for Cade, but you can't really see it. But this is what my kid did today at GT, and it looks like it's a Post-it note in a bag, right? This is strawberry DNA. So they've been doing a unit this semester where they're doing forensic analysis, right? They're trying to figure who stole the cookies from the cookie jar. Literally, is what they're doing, and there's suspects, and they've done blood analysis, fingerprint analysis, DNA analysis here. Really a really rich activity for these kids, and they love it, and they really get into this activity. Requires a lot of materials and a lot of planning to set up and do this right and do this well. And I'm just worried that when we say now we need 8 sets of this, that we're going to be able to support the same level of enrichment rather than let's keep this in one place with a group of teachers that have a synergy together and can learn the best techniques for teaching this, you know, rather than, are we going to create 8 sets of this?
What we've done is I worked with the GT specialists to really inventory everything that we have. How many do we have? Do we have enough to separate between 8 campuses? And I've set aside some money that we haven't spent yet in our budget this year to be able to purchase some of those things so that we have adequate materials at each campus. So we've really looked at what are we using, what are we not using, and what do we need, so we can get those ready for next year.
And that's, again, funds that could be spent this year on a field trip opportunity or something else, right, that we're having to spend on replicating services, duplicating services that we could just as easily have in one place. Since money is fungible that way. It's probably pretty clear to you guys that this is pretty personal to me. And the reason is that David Young, who brought this program here, he and I grew up together in Abilene. We were in the same GT program in Abilene, and it's the model that was used to create the pull-out program we have here that my kids have been in since 2010. 1 year exception, I think, where my youngest was too young. But universally talking to my kids, talking to my college kid, my high school kid, and my 10-year-old today, going to River Valley, going to Woodgate at first, and then going to River Valley is the highlight of their week. And these kids, I can promise you, the ones I've talked to and the parents I've heard from today are absolutely crushed by the decision you're making and by the fact that you're doing it without even talking to their parents, intentionally without talking to their parents. I know from our conversation today, you determined specifically you did not want to seek input from all parents on this. I can't fathom why we would do that to the parents of these 280 kids. So I feel pretty strongly you guys need to take a break, take a pause on this. Let's wait at least a month and we can survey parents now, or let's take the summer and figure out, you know, maybe we take another year with what we have and have a more full conversation with parents about how we want to do GT here, because this is something unique that we do. Not a lot of programs do this, not a lot of districts do this, and it's something that really sets us apart. So I don't really have any other questions. I think I've said what I can say.
So I'd like to follow up on, I had a child who was in the pull-out program starting in 2010 and loved going to Woodgate, and again, highlight of this week. Graduated number 14 in his class, by the way. Not that we're just a little bit proud, but anyway. Yeah. We've talked a bit, I've heard repeated a number of times about the different programs. Well, as you say, we had that pull-out model starting in 2010. I don't remember why we switched in 2018. If memory serves, that was not a very popular decision at the time. And then, if I'm reading this correctly, all of the changes we've had since are all COVID-based. Is that correct?
Since the last 2 years have been.
So we act like we've been trying all of these different things, but if you remove the COVID factor, we would just have that one anomalous year, and otherwise we would have had a stable pull-out program. So that's been overall the model that we've had that has served us. So I just want to clarify that. I share concerns with that has been mentioned already about the reduction in instruction time, that lack of collaboration. How many GT teachers got to weigh in on this? Have they all had a chance to provide some feedback?
There were 2 GT specialists on the committee that spoke for the team. So they collaborated with their team and brought ideas and solutions and suggestions back to the advisory committee. So there were 2 GT specialists. One was brand new this year, and one has been a GT specialist for many years.
Okay. I'm just concerned about where, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There were 4 parents, just to clarify.
Right. It's hard to be a traveling teacher. It just is. And I know we do it in other subjects, but this is different because of the instruction they're giving than, say, art or music, where you have very dedicated activity and space and materials. I've watched it wear our teachers out. And as hard as it is to get them and keep them and everything they've been through, I'm really concerned that they're going to exhaust themselves. And then the final point that I would make about the loss of instruction time, we allow our secondary students to travel as their schedule permits off campus for all kinds of other things that enrich their instruction. And I don't know if that's what's in the best interest of our kids. I'm not worried about putting them on a bus if that's what they've been doing more or less for the last 10 years. And it's worked, I don't know. Yeah. A lesson.
Well, and to clarify one thing that was mentioned earlier, we do value parental input, as has been evidenced by the many thought exchange initiatives that we've sent out over the last couple of years over many different topics. This situation, I kind of equate it to, sometimes you have to make programmatic decisions, especially program placement decisions. So I know special ed was an example that was brought up earlier. It's very common to form a task force, to form a committee with representatives to make those type of decisions. We do that on the ESL side of things. We do that in special ed. And so that's the direction that we went this way. So it isn't that we chose to purposefully not seek input. We chose purposefully to gather a team who can truly and in-depth vet the different options and all the logistical considerations that we have coming up. And another challenge that the committee had was come up with a plan that's going to be sustainable, because we've been kind of flipping back and forth for a number of years, and nobody agrees that that's the way to go, to have just multiple changes. We have a couple of elementary schools that may have space next year, but we don't know into the future. We don't know if if there's going to be other special programs that need to be brought to some of these schools, how fast we're going to grow into some of these spaces. And so we wanted to come up with a plan that could be sustained, and so that we wouldn't have to then come back again, well, now we're changing again a couple of years down the road. And I would just add to any parents, and I know this isn't the venue, please call me. I'd love to answer your questions. There's a lot of specific and very detailed questions. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation and hopefully get those questions answered.
That 3 people had voted to keep the plan where it was. Which 3 committee members was that?
I don't know. It was all of the votes. They voted for their first and their second choice. And then I took all that data and tallied it up.
Okay.
So I can't tell you which committee member voted for which one.
Okay. So we don't necessarily know if the parents that were present really felt strongly one way, or the GT specialists that were present really felt strongly one way.
I can look at that. I don't have that right now.
Okay. Maybe that's worth sort of considering if we do want to consider their input. The other members of the committee, I believe, were mostly principals, right?
We had 2 principals from each side, so from the Hewitt side and from the Woodway side, and then we had 2 parents from each side.
So there weren't 5 principals on the list. The list I had seen had 5 principals.
There was 4 principals. Dr. Voigt and I served as facilitators for the meeting. We did not cast a vote. Only the committee casted their votes.
And then 2 GT specialists.
Yeah.
So 10.
I do appreciate the position that you're in and the decision that needs to be made, but given that this is newly released and already is getting so much feedback, I again would urge you to see if there's another way we can slice this particular pie.
I do want to thank Dr. Payne and also you, Ms. Duncan. That slide that Ms. Watts keeps referring to is regarding the back and forth. You want to put that up, page 31 in our board packets. Timeline, yes, over the years. And I think in my, I guess, overview of it all and looking at it, this board, future boards will have to come to this issue again. If you don't look at it as proposed, we will not have the space. You'll be looking at it again in terms of one campus again. Yeah, we can look at Chapel Park, and you can look at temporary, and that is something we should consider. But just understand that this is what they are proposing is the long-term answer to still having pull-out services. And if you look at the comparable districts, what we do is unique, and it is above and beyond, and it is a fantastic program. And our students and their work to widen the net are all admirable, and they've worked very hard, and those specialists, and to continue to propose additional staff to serve students. And so, a part of it, I think we overlook the 9 out of 10 positives that have occurred in the gifted and talented program, and we're looking at the placement. In special education, no, we don't. The district has made decisions about placement of programs. Classes like functional academics or academic development, or where they are, and they haven't been perfect, and we have moved, but we are really striving now with this model of 8 elementary schools in particular to work to those where they're on their home, as close to their home campus as possible with the programs, because we've grown and being able to do that with economies of scale. So yes, we can look at the current program that we do have and looking at one of the schools. I just know this board or future boards will have to look at this again in the future, because we even if it was back at River Valley, even it is a middle school, I think we talked about the age. My only concern again was really first graders with 8th graders and campuses, because it is an 8th grade campus, not a 5th and 6th grade center. So saying that, let's just putting it another way, I pause. I have concerns about that. But yes, we could look at, as mentioned, more centrally located. Someone mentioned, one of the parents, more centrally located schools. But the growth pattern of like a Chapel Park is fast. If we go back to our demographic study and look how quickly it will fill in. Park Hill is new, but it's faster than all of them. And Castleman Creek is full from the start, things like that. So we would, still have to look at this issue in the past. So
There's a lot of positive here, so I know that I feel pretty passionate about this one issue, but I love what we're doing from the middle school and the high school level, and I love the fact that we're doing screening in 2nd and 5th now. I think that's it's great to make sure we don't miss kids. I think on this issue, it's just let's pause, let's bring more people into the conversation and have a more full discussion here before we say to these parents, hey, this is it, like it or leave it. I think so. Please consider that.
My kids did both. We did pull out, and we did in classroom at Midway. I mean, my kids didn't always have pull out. So this is way better than what, my oldest had. So, yeah, it's a great program. So we were disappointed when they weren't, but, we did what we did. So I like a pull out. So at least we're taking them out of the classroom. I would like to see the 1st and 2nd graders have a full day like they were, because it is so much more they can do. And I think they deserve that if we're going to really honor the special ed part of the program. But I think we could, maybe find another location, or I know we don't have the money, but maybe it means getting more GT specialists. I don't know, but maybe just think about if it was to stay on campus instead of being pulled to a different campus. Look at some of your other options, because I do understand taking the kids off campus, what that means, the space. I see both sides. We do have a fabulous program. It's been awesome. Like I said, it's gotten better and better every year. But we don't, it's just something that's passionate to a lot of parents, and it's a special subgroup. And so I think it would be nice if we could pause. I know y'all have done a lot of work, and you had everyone's best interest at heart. You did this intently and purposefully, and you didn't mean to do anything to upset anybody. Of course, that's can't please everybody, but what I'm trying to say is you did all this for the right reasons, and I appreciate that. But perhaps we need to just, reflect on it a little bit more, and just give people a chance to air their thoughts even more, because that even makes people feel better, even if the end result doesn't always change. It's the fact that maybe they're heard makes a difference.
I think that's a huge piece, and do want to honor the work that your council did. Don't in any way mean to undermine that. It's just a small group. It's a passionate group committed to seeking the best possible resources for their kids. Been through a lot of turmoil with COVID. Just if nothing else, let them weigh in and be listened to.
Because you do have a complete different spectrum of some of those kids, in the GT programs. So, thank you for the parents for coming tonight. I know that's always.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all being here.
Appreciate it. All right. Anything else?
All right, very good. Thank y'all. Virtual school for 22-23. Becky?
Excellent. Good evening, Dr. Kazanis and members of the board. I'm excited to give you an update on the Midway Virtual School, how it's going, and then our plan for moving forward. So you may remember that we started a remote learning option for our families back in August. We felt the need from families because of their concerns with the current health and medical conditions in the community. They really felt like there was an interest in this virtual school program, so we launched the Midway Virtual School. We started the day after Labor Day, and then 2 days later, the state came up with Senate Bill 15 that was passed into law, which funded remote learning, which was excellent, except that it came with some conditions. And so you may remember we talked about those conditions at the time, and it said in order for students in virtual school to be fully funded with ADA funds, then they needed to have achieved satisfactory performance on a STAR test, had 10% less excused absences, or unexcused absences rather, and a C or higher in foundation curriculum. Along with those requirements, they also needed to be currently enrolled in the district, have reasonable access to in-person instruction, and then not have more than 10 absences in the current school year. Some of our students met this criteria. In fact, most of our students met this criteria, but not all did. And we felt like because we had made that commitment to our families and our community, that we needed to follow through with that commitment. So we allowed all of those students to stay in virtual school, and then we supplemented those funds with ESSER funds to make sure that we could facilitate the virtual school in a quality manner for all students. However, we ended up with only 14 students that didn't meet the criteria. So that performed well. Our students were the right students to be in that program. So our virtual school plan, you may remember, was asynchronous, so students could do work anytime. However, we worked in some synchronous moments. We thought it was important for those students to have contact with teachers. And so we had synchronous meeting times for our students and teachers, and then our students engaged in 240 minutes of instruction, just as they would have if they were face-to-face in our classrooms. So our elementary model, students meet daily still with their teacher for guided reading and guided math lessons, and then they do additional content through Seesaw and Schoology, and then our grades are grouped K1 and then 2, 3, and 4, 5 with teachers for each of those areas. This is interesting because this is what it looked like this week when I did a teacher observation for our virtual students. The students that logged in at 8 o'clock in the morning, were dressed and ready to go and responding, and their teacher had this on the screen. She had warm-up activities for them. This is a picture of them on the screen here and their teacher there in the middle. So this is a second grade group, and they're doing a lesson on plural nouns at the time. They have mastered the art of Google Meets and responses. They have little cards that they hold up when they write on. They have dry erase boards that they'll hold up on the camera to show a response. They do the thumbs up, thumbs down, and then they unmute and answer questions all the time. It was a fun group, and they were ready to go at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I think this has been a great success, and this was a nice small group instructional environment. Our secondary is a little bit different. They use Edgenuity as a learning platform, which we've used for a long time in Midway, and all of their graduation and grade level requirements are covered through the Edgenuity program. They meet weekly with our secondary teacher, Donna Jonigan, and she helps them set goals and keep track of where they are on their progress that they've set. She's also sort of our on-demand teacher, because when they need help with an assignment, particularly math, she does lots of math tutoring, she'll meet them on a Google Meet and go through a lesson. In fact, she's also been doing face-to-face tutoring sessions here to get some of those students ready for their math STAR test and the Algebra 1 EOC that's coming up. So lots of great things happening there. They do track daily progress. We haven't offered extracurricular activities through those programs because there's not any UIL associated courses that are offered through Edgenuity, so it doesn't have a UIL or extracurricular face-to-face component that's needed because of the curriculum. So our kiddos attend daily. They log in during regular face-to-face hours for their attendance, just as they would to come to school during regular time, and then they make progress based on the assignments they turn in or meeting with the teacher during the day. So some of the program highlights: we're going to graduate 13 seniors from the Midway Virtual School program, which we couldn't have imagined that several years ago that would be a possibility. So that's awesome. Also, our virtual school is accepted into the TEA Virtual and Hybrid Accelerator Program. So I meet monthly with people from around the state. There's about 17 or 18 districts who are also hosting a virtual school. And so we're able to talk to one another about great ideas and maybe some not so great ideas that we had that didn't work. And so that's nice to have that group of folks to share ideas with. But also we're working with people from TEA who are also talking to and on part of the commissioner's study on virtual school. So we're able really, as a district, to help shape what virtual learning may look like in Texas. So that's a neat opportunity, I think, for us as Midway being a part of that and launching this early on. We're also part of a research study currently. Baylor and Huckabee and Region 12 have a combined study who's looked before at student engagement and flexible furniture. You may remember that when we had flexible furniture at our elementary campuses. Now they're looking at engagement of elementary students in the virtual setting. So we had some agreements already going on, and they're interested in studying students in the online learning environment. So we've been able to sort of contribute to the medium in that way as well. So we're excited about that opportunity. So as far as enrollment goes, if you look at the far right, we started the year with 76 students and we're still sitting at 71. We lost some students in the younger grade levels as the parents became more comfortable with the health medical environment. I think more of our younger students went back, but we gained secondary students. And so I think our secondary students enjoy virtual learning. They enjoy the online setting, and many of them are going into probably post-secondary opportunities that are probably online learning. So I think we see that movement there. What we hope to do for the 22-23 school year is to collect information from parents about interest. We opened an application on March 1st. We limited the grade levels because our K-1 numbers got so small, and it really is harder for those students to engage online. So we've limited it to 2nd through 12th grades, and then we plan moving forward to go ahead and require the state requirements for attendance in our virtual school, so it'll be fully funded as far as like those students participating. And we know that they're on grade level, and we won't have like deep intervention that's needed for those students who might better benefit from face-to-face instruction. So as far as our enrollment right now, our application shows 51 students interested. We know there's a population of our secondary students that haven't responded yet. So moving forward after this, we'll be making some phone calls and targeting some particular groups of students who we feel like have voiced interest in the virtual school but not filled out the application. So we do intend to reduce staff to 2 teachers next year to facilitate We're also going to leave the application open a little bit longer and then target some specific student groups to collect the rest of that student population and families that would be interested in virtual school. And then based on the elementary grade level interest, we'll decide if we can actually offer the youngest grade levels in a way that it would be reasonable for a teacher to be able to cover multiple grade levels and really meet the needs of students. So we'll look at that closer, but that is our virtual school plan for next year. Do you have any questions about virtual school?
The state has committed funding it for
22-23 it's funded.
What's their academic success looking like?
The students that have struggled in a significant way, parents have decided that face-to-face was a better opportunity. Right. So really the students that are still involved are doing quite well.
So we're clearly beyond sort of COVID as the main driving factor
Right.
next year. I mean, are we kind of in a mode where this is a regular thing and we want to see how this grows, or what's our plan sort of?
I think that's our interest. That's what we're testing right now is, will we have enough interest that it's actually a viable option for our district and for our students and families? I know even larger districts are struggling to get numbers. Frisco, Arlington, they're like less than 200 students in their virtual school.
District.
And they're significantly larger than we are. So percentage-wise, ours is pretty significant as far as that number goes. So as long as it's still something that we can facilitate and something that we can do well, I think we want to offer it.
But the last statement, you said that's the key. We can, have a significant number of students and that we can support it and do it well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they've looked very carefully at this elementary in particular. The secondary is a little different with Ingenuity, and the current staff member we have who has had so much experience with Ingenuity, she's doing a great job. So is our elementary staff. It's just the grade spans and
Right.
difficulty it is from second and third, or teaching fourth and fifth, and the content. So we want to be sure it can be high quality. If not, we don't want to do it.
Absolutely.
And obviously from a long-term perspective, we would need to consider things like special ed or English as a second language or GT or things like that.
We have a
as
part-time
well.
special ed person right now that serves students.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
Accommodations, they're served.
Yes.
A few students realized they weren't doing well face to face. Was that something that we initiated? Like, hey, you're not doing good, or did the parents come to us? I mean, how was that process?
I think it was a back and forth. Like our teachers have done an excellent job of communicating with parents. You have to, because if a kid's not logging in at the right time, you want to contact an adult to say, our Google Meet time was scheduled here. Can I help you? Or is there something else we can do to get your child logged on? Is the iPad working? All of those things. And so because of that communication, I think they've been open about the success of how students are doing in those small group meetings, especially for our elementary students. When the teacher is able to interact with that student every day, we have a better idea of really whether they're picking up on the things that they should be developmentally and academically.
And you may have mentioned it, and I apologize if you did, but one of the things too about the virtual school, even in the longer term, is looking at that secondary number, is the possibilities that it could serve students that may be dually enrolled, meaning they might be, for example, in Dr. Willis' is a Horizon program that we have where they would need a course or two that they could take. It could be, it just works out better for a student with Ms. Smith at Midway High School, but that is just a way they could pick up a credit or two. I mean, they offer credit recovery. We don't generally like that, but we want to just see, kind of test the waters a little bit and see that. Generally, this group, though, are those that want it full-time. They want the full virtual
They do.
Education.
Right. Or like you said, it might be something we end up just offering the secondary level. We just do high school.
It could be.
So.
It could be. We'll watch the numbers and decide. Yeah, for sure.
Kudos to you guys. I know this was kind of motivated by COVID and had to be done quickly, and you've rolled that into a long, sustaining, good program. It's the real silver lining of our COVID experience, right?
It is, and the teachers have been amazing. They've done the heavy lifting on this for sure. So the teachers have done an excellent job.
Well done to you and your team.
Yeah.
I'm really proud.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent. Any other questions? Terrific.
Don't go away.
I know. I'll put a different hat on.
Do that.
I was going to say before she started, put a different hat on, but put your thinking caps on this one. Okay. just the primer, because this is a lot to understand and take in. But
math involved.
What's that?
There's math involved.
There's math involved. but it is, my opinion, very important that there's special consideration given and this understanding of this teacher incentive allotment for our staff and for the future profession in teaching. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Scanis. The teacher incentive allotment was an optional part of House Bill 3, so that's way back from 2019. So it was optional, but it was the pathway where effective educators could earn a six-digit salary, six-figure salary. And so the purpose of the incentive allotment was for teachers to earn higher salaries so that we could attract and keep those most effective teachers in our district, but also in the state of Texas. And then it was meant to attract them to the campuses and incentivize the campuses that had the students with highest needs. So there's always been two pathways. One was national board certification, and one was local designation system. National board certification you've heard about for a while here in Midway. In fact, we're about to begin cohort 3 of the national board this summer. Dr. Lori Sapp and Kathleen Minshew are national board certified teachers and facilitators of that program. And so national board has been one of those things that a teacher usually takes on individually. It's a professional growth opportunity. They do work on their own after hours, and it's usually something they do alone. But in Midway, we've created the support system because we had people with experience. And so now there are many teachers that are working together. They have coaches, they have these facilitators, they get feedback. And we also have a local stipend that we give teachers when they have national board certification. So in addition to this teacher incentive allotment money, there's also some local money tied to that as an incentive for being national board certified. So that's one option, and it's not exclusive to a particular teaching area, so nearly all of our teachers have this as an option. The other pathway was that local designation system. So if a district chose to participate, they had to create a local designation system that would identify the high-performing teachers in their district. And so along with that, there were a couple of system requirements. And that is that at a minimum, our designation system had to include a teacher performance measure and a student growth measure. So teacher performance is their yearly teacher evaluation. That's the observation where the principal goes in. We use a tool called T-Test that's the state tool. So that one's accepted. We have that, not a problem. Student growth measure could be pre and post test. It could be student learning objectives. It could be portfolios. So the district had to decide the best opportunity to measure student growth for a particular teaching assignment. You could also include other factors. They weren't required, but it could also include a portion of student surveys or family surveys or leadership opportunities, professional development, but not a requirement in order for your application to be accepted or your system to be accepted. So we began the work in Midway of creating a local designation system back in September. So I sent an interest email out to teachers and administrators. All members of the district got an email to ask if they would be interested in serving on the committee. So those that were interested were added to the committee. And then we've been working on a plan since September, making decisions about identifying eligibility groups and choosing the student growth measure for each group of eligible teachers, identifying how we were going to calibrate T-Tests so it would be a fair and reliable system for us to evaluate teachers with. We looked at weighting those system requirements and then how we would distribute funds to teachers and then equitable placement of teachers who were designated in our district. So big decisions to be made by this committee. So the committee, made up of about 35 people, and it's a mix of teachers and principals and district administrators, instructional specialists. When we had people missing in particular categories, we would go ask them. We don't have anyone representative from like fine arts. Would you come join us to be a rep from fine arts? Or would you join us to be a rep from elementary PE, because we didn't have a person. So we felt like we had pretty good representation district-wide. So that committee decided that we would only use those two required measures, teacher performance and student growth. And then we would weight those. It's not a 50-50 split. They felt like 40% should be the teacher performance, the T-Test evaluation, and then 60% should be student growth. And the reasoning behind that was that they felt like if a teacher's students are making progress, then that shows they're an effective teacher. So we decided that the eligibility groups would roll out in 2 phases. We can submit an original application and then add to that application in a later year. And so we chose to do this because our phase 1 teachers could include our core academic teachers, pre-K through 12, who had an established third-party test that we already routinely used, which means it's not a new added thing on a teacher's plate or a new added assessment for students necessarily. And we know it's valid and reliable because we've used it for years, or it's used by many, many people in the state or across the country. So we could move forward immediately with that group. The second group would be other content areas, other teacher groups that did not yet have a pre and post test that we routinely used, but we could create one at the district level. So we could create those tests, or we could create portfolio, artifact criteria and rubrics, or we could go and purchase third-party tests for areas who could find something that would be appropriate to measure growth in their content area. So that was our rationale for those two groups. So immediately, phase 1 is the group that we submitted first, and that includes all district pre-K teachers, K through second grade teachers, third through fifth math and science, third through fifth, reading and social studies, and then any K-12 PE teacher that gives a fitnessgram as an assessment, which they all do. In our secondary area, the ones that had those existing tests were our 6th through 8th grade ELAR, 6th through 8th grade math, 9th and 10th ELAR, and then Algebra 1. So these folks already had vetted tests that we knew were reliable sources that we could submit in our application. Phase 1's data capture year starts next fall. All students in these eligible groups would have to be assessed with that particular student growth measure, and all teachers would need to be observed. For our phase 2, not to leave them out, we would start a local data capture next year, because this summer we would create those pre and post assessments so that we could implement them in the school year next year and then collect local data. We don't want to set a growth measure on an assessment or assume that it's a valid and reliable tool without having utilized it in our district. So we want to capture local data on that information prior to submitting it on our TIA application. However, if we collect that data this next school year on those phase 2 teacher groups, we'll be ready to submit them the next time the application is available to be tweaked. So as far as teacher compensation goes, so this is the important piece. By law, 90% of all of the funds generated by teacher incentive allotment must be spent on teacher compensation on the campus where the funds are generated. It doesn't say it goes directly to the teacher. So that's a committee decision. And so when our committee talked about it, they said that of that 90% of funds that must be spent on teacher compensation, they believe that 85% of those funds should go directly to the teacher. 5% of those funds they felt like should be designated for instructional support staff, because they realize we have paraprofessionals and instructional support staff who are not certified teachers necessarily, who do a lot of work with our students in small groups, in intervention time, who help to make their students a success, and they wanted some type of compensation to go toward those people who help with the growth of students who maybe aren't certified teachers on their campus. And then 10% of those funds would go toward administrative costs, because it's quite a bit of data aggregation, and we may need to purchase additional pre and post tests from third parties in order to have valid and reliable sources and keep our system up and running. So this is what it looks like. 85% of those funds would go directly to the teacher, and then support staff would have 5%, and admin costs would be 10%. So the allotments this is pulled directly from the state website. The latest data that they had was the 2021 school year. This is the figure per designation. So you see recognized, exemplary, and master level designations. The teacher would receive 85% of that if they were designated in one of those areas. And the designation changes, the payout changes based on 2 factors. One is the rural or non-rural status. And as you see in this chart, none of our campuses are considered rural. The other reason that they would change is that we have different percentages of low socioeconomic students on our campus. So that was in the beginning when the system was set up to incentivize the students with highest needs, or teachers on the campuses with students with highest needs. This is how that comes out in the actual figures. So if we project the outcomes that the state says are possible, in phase 1, we believe we would have, and this is dependent on scheduling of particular teachers with teaching assignments and things, but I believe that there'll be 302 eligible teachers based on our current teaching assignments, which means, based on the state figures, that would mean that we probably have 39 recognized teachers in the system, 45 exemplary, and 15 master teachers. They have some formulas already created that you're supposed to match standards with, which means that those allotments would come to generated funding of $677,274, and 85% of that would go directly into teacher stipends, which is $575,000 plus dollars. So as far as the timeline goes for TIA, I submitted the application last week on April 13th. So it will be checked by Texas Tech and the TIA working group through TEA. We should know by August 15th whether or not they accept our local designation system. And then we start collecting data. So if accepted, we start collecting that student growth data, the pre and post test scores, and then also those teacher observation pieces beginning next school year. In November of the next fall, we submit the names of teachers who qualified through our own local system to Texas Tech for data validation. And then they look at the data and then measure it against the other state outcomes and say yes or no on the people that we submitted. And then on April 24th of 2024, we receive the final designations and allotment notifications. So we'll know specifically which teachers and which amounts were earned through that data capture. Yes, ma'am.
The $500 back if
Yes.
they qualify?
Yes,
Okay.
that comes back into our system.
And we don't, if they don't qualify, we don't get it back.
I think we get it back no matter
Think we
what.
get back anyway? Okay,
Mhm.
good.
It's like a processing fee. So as soon as your application is accepted and everything is a go, I think that's all reimbursed back in a settle-up payment. So on May 15th, 2024 would be our first teacher payout. We would pay through a one-time stipend through their May paycheck for the amount that they've been allotted. And then on September of 2024, in the settle-up time, we would receive funds to reimburse what we had paid teachers. There is a rule with teacher incentive allotment that you have to spend those funds for designation before August 31st of the year, but then they don't reimburse you until September. So it's nice that we pay up front. Wesley knows.
How reliable is this source? Yeah, you get paid.
But is it just a one-time award, or are these teachers eligible
Teachers
for this
are
every
designated for 5 years, so they can expect that amount
every 5
for
years?
5 years.
Or every year for 5 years?
Every year for 5 years.
Wow.
Were to change districts.
It
It follows them.
Follows them.
Exactly.
And that's why the
It's only for
payment.
5 years.
It's for 5 years.
But it can be renewed. I mean, I assume they're going to have a
Right.
renewal process.
So if a teacher becomes designated in our district, there aren't that many districts around that are doing this at this time. So they would need to stay in Midway in order to continue to be designated.
To have a program in order for them to continue to get the
do
money.
it again.
Oh.
Mhm. I mean, the money would move, but after those 5 years, they're done. And if they're not in a district that supports the system, they would need to come back to one in order to be designated again.
We need to tell the rest of our districts not to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Okay,
Do
so
they,
let's
do they
look at
go
that.
through the same evaluation
So
as the
at
national
the
board?
national board is the national board certification. So they earn that on their own. Once they get national board certification, it's not dependent on student performance and it's not dependent on teacher evaluation. It's solely like their earned certification. They qualify for that recognized column as national board certified, but in addition to that number, the district pays a $2,000 local stipend to those teachers. So it does put them closer to that middle exemplary level.
But they can still go through the process of evaluation
I
to
mean,
move up
a
the
national board
master?
certified teacher could also like have great scores and great evaluations and qualify through the local designation system as well. I mean, they wouldn't get the same, they wouldn't double up on money. It would be
Right,
one or
right,
the
right.
other. But I mean, there's potential there to do all of those things. Yes.
What's that mean?
So
Back to that slide, timeline slide. I think it's
5th year for the program?
it is, it's a
Oh.
5th year. Now, cohort A were people who were helping, they were building the plane in the air. So cohort A are districts, and there were very few of them, but they were people who already had merit pay systems set up in their own district. So your Dallas ISD and large districts like that had some merit pay, they modeled the system similar to those people that had an existing system in place and then have tweaked it since that time. So, I mean, the House bill was passed in 2019. So cohort A would have started back then, and then cohort E is where we are submitting this year. So I submitted it this April as cohort E. I might have deleted it to make the presentation shorter.
Okay. We're good.
You're welcome.
It's just,
That was just for you to know.
Yeah, it's just the E is that we are in that cohort. So this data collection year is pivotal in the 22-23 school year.
That's right.
In order then to have our plan approved and teachers to receive compensation by the end of the 23-24.
Yeah, it still takes it until 2024 for payout.
So you mentioned there was some existing tools that were already being used for some of these teachers, and then there's locally developed tools we're going to do this summer. Is our long-term plan to move everybody to one set of evaluations, or are we still going to keep that dual track of?
I think there's always going to be some differences in the student growth measure because one tool does not fit everybody, so we're always going to have some differences. But, I mean, all of your kindergarten teachers would have the same assessment no matter what.
Right, okay.
So if we can get kinder, first, and second
Apples
on the
to
same
apples, in
tool,
other
then
words.
that's great, right? And so we're using some local screener, not local, we're using some third-party screeners to do that, which we would have done a reading screener in the beginning of the year and the end of the year every year anyway. So it's not really adding another layer. It's something that we already have. So for us, that's the easiest step forward with the largest group of people. You are going to have some areas that are going to have to use a portfolio and not a pre and post test because I may have, some self-contained classrooms whose students do not perform well on an assessment on a multiple choice test. And I need to look at artifacts that students work throughout the year. That could be in fine arts. It could be in a special ed self-contained classroom in the elementary level. So we'll have some unique areas, but there's potential to build student growth measures in all of those areas. And we'll help them in summer professional development to come alongside and build those local portfolio rubrics or local pre and post tests.
You mentioned special ed, so they're eligible for this as well.
Mhm.
Really any of our teachers that are full-time or at least 50% for 180 days.
That's right. That's right.
For every teacher to do this, I'm sorry, there's a lot of different groups. I'm not following all the details, but is there a way that any teacher could qualify?
We have to designate a student growth measure for that entire teacher population group. So, for example, Algebra 1, every Algebra 1 teacher is going to give their student the same pre-test and the same post-test, and we have to collect that information. So it's difficult to say there's something for every teacher because there may be teachers who have some difficulty. Maybe there's only 2 of them, and maybe there's not a great pre and post test. And it's been difficult for us to identify the best measure for growth in that student area. However, we've also got national board certification options, and it's well supported in the district. So there really is a pathway for every teacher. It may be a faster path to do national board and start it this summer, or, we can work on pre and post tests or portfolio type things and get to a place where we have a good measure of student growth in that area. But that's not something that everyone does commonly right now. And, it's a heavy lift for a teacher if they're the only person, or there's only 2 of them teaching it in the entire school district when you have 30 people who are teaching kindergarten. So it's a different kind of lift and a different effort. So we want to give them the best path forward that's a good measure, that's equitable, but there's not really a one-size-fits-all, unfortunately. Great question.
You have the best data analysis. This is great.
Thanks.
Everything you do.
Thank you. All right, any other questions about teacher incentive allotment?
No, thank you for doing this for our teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
Lots of hats to wear.
Lots of hats.
Panther Stadium scoreboard update. How quickly can you score, Brad?
there's a joke in there somewhere. I'm going to leave it alone.
There's a joke in there somewhere, yeah.
First, before I talk about the scoreboard, I really want to thank Dr. Popejoy. On behalf of athletics, me personally, appreciate all your service, but particularly during that COVID time, that fall when we were trying to figure out how to play sports, you were a great resource for me personally. Always a phone call away, so thank you for that, and I appreciate what you've done. So, the reason I'm here to talk about Scoreboard and request that the school board consider replacing it this summer. This is the current board. I think most of y'all are pretty familiar with it. Some historical facts about it. We built it in 2010 for that season, in August 2010. Same time we renovated the stadium, but the money did not come from that bond. It came from general fund with the purpose of repaying the district through partnerships for advertising revenue that went back into the general fund. So the purchase cost was $549,500. This was the initial revenue strategy to repay the district, so to speak, with different levels of partnership, the big ones being the anchor partners, smaller one being delayed game clocks. You can see the amount there that was generated or was to be generated. In 2013, that's when those first initial wave partnerships were to be renewed. So Randy, at the time, he reduced all of the partnership amounts basically in half and added a little different incentive. Season tickets, VIP parking, things like that. So from 2013 to present day, this is the revenue structure that we use and have used since that time. So total revenue since the inception of it in 2010 is $662,092. So we repaid the district, so to speak, and have some revenue brought in, some profit there. Our current partners I just listed there, many of those partners have been with us since 2010. We've added some additional ones. We've done a good job of maintaining and fostering those relationships, I think. There was a short period of time when one of our anchor partners wasn't on there, and we put the Education Foundation. But since about 2016, we've had partnerships with existing partnerships that have been productive. So Scott Jansing, one of our tech guys, and Caleb Overstreet are our production guys, our game day production guys. Not only just running, and I think we have one of the best production crews in the state of Texas. Particularly with live streaming going, we do that in-house. Those guys do it. They lead it with students. It's unbelievable. But we've had a ton of issues this past year. We've had issues over the last several years, but particularly this last year, we're no longer able to get an extended warranty agreement because parts are no longer guaranteed. And a term I just learned from Jesse Garn, that's called end of life in technology terms, which is pretty morbid. But the big one is our TriCaster, which throws what the camera records onto the video board. That thing's going out. In 2 of our last 3 events, it did not work. So we were not able to have replays, some live video and those things. And Scott, who's a genius with this stuff, has cleaned it, replaced every part possible, but it's on its last legs. And we can no longer get that TriCaster replaced. So other issues we've had, video panels are going out, the color lights are going out, connectivity, wireless signal from the mic, ref mic is spotty at best, the delay game clock skips. It's 12-year-old technology, so it is what it is. The one thing I did put on here, one of the issues that we do have is the delay when you do something on the mic. That will not be resolved in this. I've asked him, I've talked to him about it. That's just, that's beyond us. That's sound physics. It's going to be present. So I just want y'all to be upfront and transparent about that. There is some cost savings because we will use the existing pillars there, the columns, and the new board is on the right. That's the proposed board. It's completely digital. We will still have ad panels even though they're not on there. We will still use it as a revenue generator. They will just be digital. One of the issues that we have now that's kind of costly is we go replace a sign, it's several thousands of dollars. We have to replace light bulbs on the current existing board. This will be done all digitally. They're just placeholders, and then we drop the image in there to honor those partnerships. We'll still show videos and promos for their companies like we have been. But we will set it right on top of those columns. The sound cabinet is the big M in the center. We'll keep that sound cabinet. The speaker was replaced not too long ago. So we will keep that. So there was a little cost savings there. One of the things that's kind of groundbreaking for us will be a game changer. As currently right now, that board, if we want sound or just to keep the scoreboard on, we have to turn the entire video board on. So that, that contributes to, the wear and tear of it. I would like to add a small scoreboard on the south end. It will cost an additional $10,000, which is included in the bid. We will use that for sub-varsity, middle school games, so we don't have to kick on the entire video board to run a lesser attended game or a smaller game. And then it will replace the delayed game clocks as well, so which are faulty right now. The total cost is $625,000. If you took the revenue minus the upfront cost of the $549, we contribute about $112.5 to the general fund profit, and then we raise just under $60,000 annually from our current partnerships. So, the goal would be we would continue to put that into the general fund and pay back the district for replacing the scoreboard now. So, any questions about scoreboard or anything else I can ask?
How many years to repay the new scoreboard?
To repay it?
Yeah, to repay it.
It'll roughly be about 8 at the current rate of what our ad panels, our partnerships cost.
So we're not going to raise the rate?
We've talked about it and continue to talk about it. A lot of our partnerships have been since 2010, and with the only difference being we lowered the rates. Maybe there's an argument now to go back and say, hey, you are paying 10, we'd like 20 now. I don't know how receptive that would be, but
I think it's a new board.
yeah, it's going to look nicer.
Yeah.
There's some pros and cons to it. One of the negatives I was telling Mr. Garn was, right now the board's always on. Their ad panels are always up. When we go digitally, it'll have to be up and running, booted, for those ad panels to be lit up. That'll be a little bit of a difference.
What's the lifespan projected?
10 to 13 years, I think, is about the expected life.
So it'll still be working, we anticipate, before, after we've paid for it.
Oh, I would absolutely hope so. And we'll have warranties and all those things
Right.
with it. First 2 years I think are 100% warranties in its parts. One of the things that we did several years ago is we purchased an extended warranty for this board until they can no longer guarantee parts.
Right.
So we'll do things like that just to ensure that it's working and going. So.
Stay up the whole time when it's on.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just like it is now.
Yes, sir.
But you don't have to turn the ads on.
Right, we won't have to. So right now, if we want to go to the stadium and just use the mic, we have to turn the entire board on, video board and everything, just for the mic to work.
Wow.
We'll remedy that if this is approved. So.
And the little scoreboard, is it digital?
No, it'll be like the old analog kind of, which is what is under the current video board now. It'll look just like that. So.
I talked a little while ago about this, and I 'cause I have some experience in this field, working at Baylor for a long time, and so I actually took our quote from Daktronics to Baylor Vision and walked through it with them to say, what are we missing here, what looks good, and they loved it. I mean, they said this all looks really good, the approach we're taking. They did talk about warranty, so I think we're at 5 years, is that right?
I think it was 5 for.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much cost-wise what we would want to go with without spending too much.
I think for another 10, it was like 91,000.
It was like 90,000, yeah, it's
something
probably not worth right now, since
yeah.
we can renew down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I loved it. And I will say that getting that smaller scoreboard in the south end zone is really important because we're in the middle of a game and that TriCaster crashes again, we lose game clock, we can't play.
Right.
But as long as we have that in the south end zone, we can play.
Right.
So it doesn't stop us.
Right. And it's a $10,000 cost on
Yeah,
a
it's not much.
$625,000.
My question, and I sort of alluded to this a little bit in our conversations, but I love having boards like this. I think it's important for fan engagement. It's important for other special events we do, like graduation.
Graduation's huge.
Things like that. But, the board's only as good as the content we put on it. Right. And it's only as good as the content plan that we have going forward.
Sure.
And you mentioned the guys on our team. I was fortunate to sit in the last week of our, and unfortunately that's the week the board died, but I at least got to see their production and kind of review and look at who they have doing what, because that's kind of my bailiwick. Yeah, I was really impressed with what they did, and I think I would encourage you to look at some of that ad revenue, and let's make sure that we are doing two things production-wise. One is lenses are going to break, tripods are going to break. We're going to need to poke this hole and run a new line over there. Let's make sure we have some money to do that, right? And even when Daktronics shows up to install it, they'll be surprised by this run or that run. So, and the other thing is let's just make sure that we're funding the production staff the way we need to keep them around, because you mentioned Caleb Overstreet. His main job is teaching people to sing, and
Oh, right.
if Belton or somebody calls and throws a bunch of money at him, he may leave, and then who do we have to fill that spot? So let's just make sure we're keeping those guys around because they're awesome.
Yes, sir.
South end already? Is there anything on that end? I can't remember.
There's nothing down there. That's where the old scoreboard before 2010 was.
Are there marketing chances on that new board?
Sir?
Would there be any marketing chances on the smaller board?
We could, yeah.
Talking about the other signs to be there all the time, that way it was a
That is
traditional
something we could
sign.
absolutely look at, for sure. Yeah. Be a little bit of an increased cost, but be a chance to recoup.
We good?
Good.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Brad.
Brad.
Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
All right, consideration items. We've got the consent agenda minutes from our March meeting, number of early graduation requests, the budget amendments that have been referenced before, updating our local policies in connection with our District of Innovation plan, out-of-district transfer, salary comp for 22-23, new positions for 22-23, new courses for 22-23, an MOU for the Empower program, HVAC contract and authority for the SOUP to execute same, and approve our change order on the sidewalk extension. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Can I remove number 6? For a couple of questions.
3.
So, do we have a motion to approve 1 through 5 and 7 through 11 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Watts. Second. Second by Mr. Alford. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Colin. We all need to talk about that one a little bit. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure the number that's on here, because I don't have her presentation in front of me. This fully funds what she had described to us. Are we considering in this, there was one line in there for stipends that was a reduction. Have we looked at zeroing that one out instead of reducing it, just so we don't? Yes, we're not going to reduce it. Okay, so the plan is to zero that out then. Great, that was my question. What else?
I would just, if with Wesley's help, just kind of we were cut short in our workshop just to extend the conversation. I think what Ms. Barton of TASB had presented and her thoroughness. We're in April, but she spent quite a bit of time. Those are very comprehensive studies. So I just want you to be assured of that, of the time spent to do those and the analysis done in terms of that market analysis and getting us where we go. Yes, it's very critical time that we are in with the teacher shortages and looking at the number of positions we have to fill here in the district, as well as those that we're adding because we're growing. And just reminding you, though, that yes, the economy of scale is probably tipped the first couple of years with opening new schools until we grow into them, because some of the positions are there because we have to have them, but they may have lower numbers here and that particular program or things like that. So enrollment is a driver, but one of the things being the size that we are, though, as a district, is just remember we always can right size. We always, through attrition each year with resignations, have the ability, if there was a way and enrollment stopped growing or didn't grow as fast, or we had some other budgetary concerns, because 80+% of our budget or more is personnel. But we do have that ability to annually to look at that and to right size if best that we can. And so, again, Wesley really has to give us through the next couple of months some ideas, but again, those were just projections based on budget deficits, possibly based on the original request for positions we need for next school year, plus then in addition would be this, and so this salary. So we really are though looking at for next year, the ESSER dollars are very critical that we use those, and that would be a great 1 year way to use them, and I think use them wisely. All the other things that we had committed to have healthy budgets in ESSER, so I'm not concerned about funding the things that we had committed to. We had already carved out over the 3 years the percentage that we need for any remediation or tutoring that's required. So that's already set aside in those budgets. So that was one thing. He did mention the new instructional facility allotment that we have to apply for and go after because we're opening new schools is another driver as well, and growth. And so we're anticipating a number using anywhere from 2 to 2.4, I believe, percent growth of students, but it could be more than that depending though on supply of homes. I think it could be higher, but there is the supply. There's a demand for them, but the supply is picking up. Mr. Alfred could probably tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like is it getting a little bit better with supplies or not? I guess not. A little better? All right.
A little bit.
How about 5% better? I'm looking for anything here, because not too much. But hopefully within, again, another year, though, out, that will catch up. I'm not saying I should have prefaced that, not tomorrow, supplies better, but in things, but hopefully within a year, 18 months, we're getting better with that, and more production of homes can meet the demand, because it's not just Midway ISD, but Greater Waco's growing, and all the new industry has got to be housing for them, and then the families that come in schools for them to be in. And so we're poised and prepared to do that. And so, what else did I talk about? Mary Lou, did I miss anything I missed? And reduces it, yeah. So I remembered my other thought, and then we were jumping through pretty quickly, and I know it was in a board workshop, but the conversations though about you look at your board packet information regarding the districts and looking at their pay structures, it really was telling and critical that you do notice those that before House Bill 3 they had passed the TRE, and they had the state bonuses and the state funding that they had received, and so that is how through that plus a House Bill 3 many districts caught. They're really equalized or even could surpass us at certain levels on our particular teacher pay based on years of experience and things like that. And so what we'll also do is not something though that I would recommend now, but it was looking at the voter approval, tax rate election types of things are at the same uniform times like May or November, I believe. Maybe they could be held other times. I think they still have to be on the uniform dates. But we would still look, though not this fall, but possibly the next fall. So that would also be, again, we're looking at a year, but then the next year possibly looking at the analysis that Mr. Brooks had done about how we could maximize a couple more. They're called those golden pennies. We have, with property value increases, we have the ability possibly to look at the interest and sinking side of the tax rate where we would still be able to meet our debt obligations and lower that possibly. So we could even have as he said, a net zero effect or even still lower it some more of our tax rate. But that is how, remember the number was just 3 cents because of the state help generated $2.8 million alone just with doing that. That not being dramatic, but we leave on the table that many other districts had capitalized on that, and that is how they are using the systems and will be able to have more operating dollars.
We haven't wanted to change the tax, right?
Right.
But I think long term, when you look at what we were looking at tonight and the need to stay competitive in terms of hiring and keeping the best people all across the district, not just teachers, but all the folks that support the students, whether it's in custodial maintenance, instructional specialists, everybody, bus drivers, everybody. In order for us to continue to do that, yes, we've got the benefit of ESSER for this upcoming year, and that can leave us in a position budget-wise where we're okay, but over the long haul, I don't know that our student growth is going to enable us to continue to be competitive and pay our folks what we need to pay them to get and keep the best. And we're that's something the board's gonna have to look at in the future.
Yeah, I definitely like doing this. I think we need to do this for our teachers to show that we appreciate them. We want them to stay. We are going to have to figure out how to pay for it.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Yeah, because right now, the one thing I want to make sure that everybody on the board understood what I understand about this, and that is, I know this isn't the exact number, but we vote to approve this tonight. We're basically committing to spend another 2.25 million, give or take, for next year. So, yeah, on compensation matters. So.
The ESSER funds are right about the same amount, so for next year, that would be covered. Like
Well, and I mean, in all fairness to Wesley,
that.
nobody's got a crystal ball right now, no school district finance person, not just Wesley, to know what your funding is gonna look like for next year. I mean, it's way early in the game to start trying to figure that out. But my guess is ours is not gonna look like we're gonna have an extra 2.25 million to cover this.
Sure.
So.
How many ads can we sell on that scoreboard?
There you
10
go.
scoreboards.
All right. Any, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cookie sales.
Cookie sales.
Other questions or comments about consent item number 6?
I would just say again, recommend the salary compensation plan as recommended from the TASB salary study.
All right, so you heard the administration's recommendation. We pulled that from the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve number 6, salary compensation 22-23?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Witt,
Second.
second by Ms. Watts. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank y'all. That's that special time of year, even though we do not have a contested election and don't in fact have an election at all, we still are required to announce what board members have achieved the required school board training. So, with that said, the following board members have exceeded, not merely met, exceeded the required hours of training. Brad Alford, Andy Pope-Joy, Pete Russick, Rick Tullis, Susan Vick, Pam Watts, and Colin Witt. No board member is deficit in the required training. Completion of the required annual training is an obligation and expectation of any board member under the State Board of Education rule. So we've met our obligation, and if a kind thank you to all the board members for all the time they've spent meeting the required training requirements. Some of those are really good, and some of them are tough to get through. They just,
Glad we can do it in person this year.
yeah, they just are. We need to act on the personnel recommendations. So we've got to update. Right, right. So that said, do we have a motion to approve the professional recommendations as shown at the updated addendum at each board member's seat?
So move.
Motion by Ms. Vick.
Second.
Second by Mr. Alford. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Contracts, do you want to say anything about contracts, Mary Lou? I understand. I just didn't know if there was anything that needed to be said about it or not. So in addition to that then, after the professional recommendations, you have a listing of the administration's recommendations for contracts for the next school year. Do we have a motion to approve the administration's recommendation on those contracts?
So move.
Motion by Ms. Vick.
Second.
Second by Mr. Witt. Any discussion, questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. I move that we allow the teacher to rescind her resignation. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Vick. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. There wasn't any reason to talk about that one, I didn't think.
We want them back.
Yeah. Clearly, that was what was wanted, so, yeah.
Like the word rescind.
Yes, like the word rescind. Do we need to go into closed session? Okay. You want to talk to us about the interim charges?
Sure, I'd love to.
Before we do that.
So I know there will be more time in the future, months, a couple ahead of us, but on your personnel recommendations and updates, the very first separation, I wanted to bring everyone's attention and say, of course, Dr. Johnson is retiring, so we'll miss Dr. Johnson tremendously, but there will be more opportunities.
Clap for that.
No, not going. You're right, very clap. But I felt on our list here, we were trying to ignore it as long as possible, but very, very happy for her. Well, she kind of already done it once. But it was a grandmother this past weekend. She already had 3, but the 4th came, so a lot going on. So, Dr. Johnson, thank you. In your interim charges, again, I just wanted you to see the depth and breadth of them before the legislative session meets again in January of 2023. Remember, these are interim charges. They do have committee meetings in Austin, but if you'll just look at both the Senate, I thought this was a very good chart from the Texas School Coalition of seeing the Senate side and the House of Representative sides and which ones are very, very similar in terms of what they're talking about. As you can see from these, a lot of them are monitoring past bills that have passed. And so you're going to be looking at bills that they're looking at passed, like under the parent empowerment area, looking at supplemental sped ed services. There were some where parents could maybe apply for a certain voucher or grant, so they're looking at how that's being implemented. Looking at parental rights and efforts, their rights in education is one area they're examining. The teacher pipeline, that's of course from the interim committee, but it's also a task force, a separate group that the governor appointed or tasked the Texas Education Agency to form, looking at that. Of course, these task force lasts about a year. It's going to take a long time. It certainly doesn't do anything for the 22-23 school year, maybe 23-24. Don't have a lot of hope at all that that's going to be fruitful, but we'll see. I think we have to study closely the district bond elections. As you can see, some, and I guess I've been in education long enough to make this statement. So under school district bonds and bond elections, I do take somewhat offense that they have to have recommendations for improved voter turnout, increased election efficiency, and better accountability of local debt. I think that's why you were elected as a board member and you have staff in the district. So we'll see more, to me, erosion of local control in a lot of these areas. But again, this isn't law by any means. This is just interim charges, ballot language, school finance, again, some type of more reporting of what we're doing with the federal funds related to COVID. Mr. Brooks and staff have that if needed to account how we've spent the dollars. Property tax is a big one, as you come out of the property tax relief. Just reviewing, this is interesting, to use excess state funds and dedicate them to possibly eliminating the school district M&O rate. So, hey, if they can do that, that'd be fantastic. But I think at the fiscal note to eliminating the maintenance and operation tax across Texas would be maybe trillion, almost
Maybe
a trillion.
Yeah,
So
the number's
good luck to
huge.
that. So again, this is just to show you the overall depth, as I said, in terms of the number of different things that they'll look at.
I see there's an item for vaping in schools. That's something the SHAC and the high school are both really working on. I don't know what we can do to be more aware of what we can do to help.
Well, they're doing everything they can.
Yeah.
They are, and we do have initiatives ahead, particularly for next school year as well. And I know high school had a night and information, but we continue to work on
We need to
this.
commit to each bring like 15 parents with us.
Yeah, bring a bus around. Get them there. So anyway, that's all. Just to say that just looking at any of the other ones that I want to bring to your attention, that just a very long list as it goes on and on that they'll be studying. Just a reminder, tomorrow, if you did RSVP, we're honoring our retirees with our retirement breakfast here in the Midway ISD, but we'll do that at the Baylor Club, 7:30 a.m., starting with the food lines. And so I know we're excited to honor them. Big group. 20 are coming, so large group then. The month that we're in, again, we'll have more details soon about graduation, and Ms. Smith and your team will send that to us as we come up and gear up for high school graduation at the stadium. I don't think I can take another weather year, so I am been praying really hard. Last year about did me in, so hopefully.
Board for graduation? Okay, that's our temporary, I got you. Okay.
That's another prayer request. So.
All right, then.
That's it.
You done? Okay. So 9:23 by this clock, we'll go into closed session under 551.074 on personnel.